Alright, so welcome to this two-part lecture series entitled Essay Writing Flair in particular, how to score an A for argumentative essay. Now, I know it might sound like a bit of a tall order, right? How do we score an A for argumentative essay when it sounds so terribly difficult? But I'd say it's very, very possible. Yeah, it's completely achievable. It just depends on our skills and aptitude in terms of how we apply what we've learned, right? Now, along the way, you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to raise them, or else there are post-it notes. Ms. Lau is at the back, she's got some post-it notes. Please write down your questions, pass them to me by the end of the lecture, and I will address them tomorrow, right? So this is in two parts, comprising several segments which I will explain today, plus tomorrow's lecture as well. All right, so let me begin by introducing something rather different. Okay, this was my very first published piece of writing. It was an argumentative piece, less than 10 years ago, actually. This was back in 2006. And back then there was this whole long debate. Is this article here, I'm not sure you don't need to see the details, and it's a very, very long story. But in short, there was a debate about whether to rename streets after war heroes. And the long and short of it was that I argued, no, we shouldn't be renaming streets after war heroes, not in the way that was recommended. And eventually it was decided by the powers that be that the streets would not be renamed. So I'm not saying that what I wrote necessarily had a major part to play in policy making, but what I would argue is that argumentative writing has a very, very crucial social function. Yeah? It's not just an academic exercise. It's also a matter of changing policies and changing society as we know it. And argumentation is very, very important for that purpose. So it's not just a matter of big policies as well. It matters even in your own lives. So for example, and this is a favorite example, right, amongst many teenagers today. Imagine if at the end of the year, after your O-levels, you want to go for some sort of graduation trip. So there are some teens who want to do that, right? And you want to convince your parents that you and your friends can go over to Johor, Malaysia, or one of those other places and spend a weekend away. Now, are they going to agree to that? No. It's going to be a bit difficult, right? No, some people are saying, oh, no, of course it wouldn't. Yeah? I'd say that takes some convincing. And how do we do that? We've got to practice skills of argumentation, right? We've got to have our usual introduction, our arguments in favor for why you're mature enough to be trusted to go overseas, for instance. And also you've got to anticipate your parents' counter-argument. You've got to anticipate what they're going to say, and then rebut them. Do we see how all of this has to take place in your mind before you even begin the act of convincing? So that's why I would argue argumentative writing is so crucial. These are skills that you will be able to take with you for the rest of your life. Right? It's not just a matter of, let's just write an essay and be done with it. No, it's vital. Yeah? And we're going to be seeing how to translate that to your O-level paper as well. Right? Okay, so let's look at the segments that we'll be covering both today and tomorrow. For how to score an A, a rather grandiose title, if I may say so myself, but one that I'm sure all of us are practically interested in. Yeah? 7 segments. First one, ideation and planning. So this concerns how do we structure our ideas? How do we brainstorm? Now this is the most crucial part of any kind of essay writing process. Because if you don't have the right ideas to begin with, you're not going to start on a solid foundation. So it's very important that you generate and spark new ideas. Yeah, ideas that will allow your essay to come alive, right? And then the second portion is your thesis statement, also known as your stand, and your topic sentences. Now, your topic sentences are parts that contribute to the reinforcement of your stand. And your stand is simply what you want. Yeah? How do you want the world to change in your favor? In argumentative essay writing, you're focused on only one thing, and that is your point of view. You want to make sure your point gets across. And all these topic sentences are parts that will help to buttress the very argument you're making. Yeah? You're trying to get to your point, and you're anticipating all the possibilities that might deny you that very reality. Yeah? Okay, so that's for topic sentences and thesis statement. Your introduction is what really grabs attention. So this is so important in terms of ensuring that your examiner remains interested. Remember that first impressions count. Every time you're looking at a person, when I'm seeing, say, a student for the first time, I'm making a judgment, not necessarily consciously, but just because I see, oh, so-and-so's sloppily dressed, and it's rather irksome, isn't it? Whereas I'm going to be saying, let's look at Kai Wen over here. Lord, and she's so well-dressed like that. Immediately, there's a positive impression that's established, right? And you want to be doing that with your essay, yeah? It's especially crucial in terms of all the various parts. Now, apart from that, of course, is paragraphing and expression, which means if you're going to have your argument in parts, you've got to make sure that it's structured, that it's organized, and that means your usual 5-paragraph structure. Now, your teachers have gone through this with you in exquisite detail, right? But I think there's much more that we can learn in terms of how we can fine-tune our writing within the structure that we are already accustomed to. So what is the difference between a B-grade essay versus an A-grade essay, which everyone here in this room, I'm sure, is perfectly capable of, right? We'll be looking at those differences, right? And then your counter-paragraph. Now your counter-paragraph, again, is, remember, comprising those crucial parts that we've mentioned. You need to anticipate what others are going to say against you, and then rebut them. Yeah, it's like fencing. Yeah, you're going to see that thrust that's come forward, and then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to dodge that. I'm going to thrust another, right, sudden movement forward in order to spring my attack. So it's very important that you anticipate all these responses. And your conclusion. Now, your conclusion is usually a segment that many people ignore. And many people think that, oh, let's just be done with it, and let's just put one sentence in, right? I mean, what, it's just a conclusion, surely. You know, what more can we say? I don't know what to write, Archer. I don't understand. Now, these are very, very legitimate responses if we're not prepared. But I'm telling you that we can be prepared. We don't have to be stuck in the exam hall, not knowing what to write for 5 minutes, in the last 5 minutes, in terms of what to say, right? For our conclusion, because there are perfectly doable strategies. Yeah, perfectly doable strategies for us to practice. And finally, editing. Now notice I haven't ended off with the idea of the conclusion. I've ended off with editing. So what is it about editing? Yeah? Which means that in the last 5 minutes of the exam, you really shouldn't be, finishing up your last sentence per se, even though that's how we normally put it. What we're doing is we have to focus on how to improve the minutiae, the little details of our expression. So we're making sure that as A-grade students, we are not going to commit, right? And notice I use the word commit as if it were a sin, right? That we're not going to make any errors, yeah, as far as possible in terms of basic spelling and grammar. That is above us, yeah? What we're looking at is expression. We are going to be looking at speaking with such fluency and eloquence as to command assent, right? So it is so important that we attain that level of agreement, yeah, with the reader simply through the sheer eloquence of our expression, right? And as I argue, right, these are not skills that, oh, yeah, this person, he speaks so well, it's because he's born like that. His English very good. Very good. So I cannot I cannot. I detest this kind of attitude. Yeah? That is not the attitude. And by the way, you might have heard these sentiments yourself, right? Say amongst your classmates. These might be echoes that resonate or ricochet in your consciousness. I'm saying no, you can. Yeah? You're perfectly capable. It's just a matter of practicing, of drilling in those A1 worthy words, for instance, and using them appropriately rather than ostentatiously. Yeah? Okay, so let's look at argumentative essay writing and what is it that we really need to do, the overall thrust of it. First of all, it's a stand. We need to adopt a particular stand instead of taking a neutral position, right? And what that means is we're not going to be sitting on the fence. We can't just say, oh, yeah, I'm not sure, I agree to a certain extent. Nonsense, I say. That is not how we argue, right? If you're arguing a point, you agree, yes or no, strongly or not. For goodness sake, make a stand, right? Have a backbone, right? So it is so vital that we say, yes, I'm arguing this position, and yet I am intelligent enough and sophisticated enough to anticipate what the other side is going to say. implicitly, that is what you're doing when you're writing. Yeah? Now, apart from that is organization and the coherent articulation of your points. Yeah? What that means is that there has to be a discernible structure. So from your introduction, from your body paragraph 1, 2, 3, and your conclusion, all of it needs to be crystal clear. Yeah? And what do I mean by coherent articulation? The reader shouldn't have a shred of doubt about what you're trying to say. Remember, and in my classes I have mentioned this, there is always a balance to be struck between clarity, right, and the sheer expression, in other words, eloquence of expression. Because sometimes when we're trying to be eloquent, when we're trying to use so-called big words, we end up obscuring the reader. We end up obscuring meaning rather than clarifying it. If we must choose between two imperatives, it would be clarity. So we have to be clear, first of all. But if we can be clear while being eloquent, we've got the best of both worlds. Yeah? So we need to make sure that we have both of these imperatives fulfilled. Yeah? To the best of our ability, of course. Now, in terms of supporting paragraphs, you want to make sure, it's like a house, yeah? You want to make sure that all the pillars are in place so that you get your argument on a very, very solid foundation. And also you need to lead the reader, right, through all these nuances, yeah? The nuances of your argument without any traces of ambiguity. So, as I said, again, clarity. But what this means is that the argument has to flow, right? From point 1, yes, but you see, this leads us on naturally to an associated point, which then we can anticipate a counter-argument. And so you see, it flows, yeah? It flows just like a winding river, yeah? Until it doesn't seem abrupt. It doesn't seem truncated. Because sometimes, you know, when we get to organization, you will see the candidate's response looking like this. They're going to have some sort of introduction, attempt at it, yeah, a sort of fairly discernible stand, but not really. Those are the worst. You know, if the candidate is not making any sense at all from top to bottom, then yeah, let's just fail the fellow. But here, that's not how it works. Usually, it's some sort of, okay, maybe it's kind of making a stand, but not really. Those are very difficult to determine, yeah, and you don't want to fall in that category. And then they've got some sort of usual mediocre paragraphs, followed by a last paragraph that argues against their stand. And then suddenly, in conclusion, I agree with my own points. Very, very odd. Okay? There is a way to avoid this pitfall. Yeah? And that's in terms of structure. So now let's look at the structure again for a quick revision. Notice we're not even beginning with expression, which is the point of this, yeah, of this lecture. We're looking at the very structure first, just to make sure we're all on the right footing, yeah, and that we're on the same page with it. So if we're looking at an introduction, yeah, it says amazing introduction or hook. I know there's a bit of exaggeration or hyperbole over there, but still, yeah, that is what you want. You want to hook the reader in, yeah, that's what you want to do. And then notice the little star over there with the thesis. That is the heart of your essay. If the entire essay had to be condensed or crystallized into a single sentence, that would be it. That would be your thesis. That's your stand, right? And then you've got your argument, A, B, C, meaning your main idea or body paragraph 1, 2, and 3, at least. Some people add in some other fancy paragraphs, but you really want to make sure these basic 3 are robust. And then you go to your conclusion, right? Okay, now with this, let's watch this video, right? That will allow us to get some sort of orientation to what we mean by this 5-paragraph structure.
We normally use a 5-paragraph structure, common in other types of essay, with 2 arguments supporting our view and 1 against. This is not the only way to write an essay. 6 paragraphs are also often used. Today, we will use 5, which is also known as a hamburger essay. This is made up of an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion.
Right, so notice the hamburger structure, and I had mentioned this to some of my classes. I'd say the hamburger structure is suitable both in terms of conceptualizing an essay. So you have the top button, right? So that's your introduction, but then you've also got your body paragraphs, and then your bottom button, the conclusion. I would say this metaphor also applies to paragraphs, and I will explain that point later on. Yeah? But in the meantime, let's understand it needs to have substance. Notice the hamburger metaphor is useful because it's the idea of the sense of substance. Meaning, I remember during junior college, my lecturer used to point to some people's essays and say, "Where's the beef?" And then there was some, my classmates who say, "So I don't eat beef." Yeah. Well, yes, I mean, lots of us don't eat beef too, but that's not the point. The point is, in other words, where's the substance of it, right? Where's the crucial, filling? I mean, I'm resorting to metaphors here, but it's the idea of there being something meaty and textured about your argument. We see that, right? Okay, so this brings us first. Let's start from the very beginning, right? It's a very good place to start. Ideation and planning. Yeah? So, again, how are we to brainstorm? What are we looking at first? Any guesses? What are we looking at? Ideas, yes. Ideas from where? Say you've got a question. What in the question are you looking for? Keywords, excellent, whoever that was, right? You want to be identifying keywords. Was that Sharif? Yeah? Yeah? Or someone along the back? Yes? Sharif, well, very good, Sharif. Yeah? The idea, yeah? Or associated people, we get the point, right? Yeah? The idea that you need to, so when you get the question, you've got to circle it up. You've got to circle those keywords, and then you brainstorm from there. Because all those words that spring from those keywords are going to help you as you're writing your essay. You're going to be relying on those words again and again, right? Let's try it, okay? We're just speaking in the abstract, yeah? Let's have a sample question. Very simple one too, okay? Very straightforward. Let's start with nice and easy. Money is the root of all evil. Do you agree? You have 1 hour, begin. No, of course not. But imagine you're in the exam hall and you had something like that, yeah? How would you begin? Well, let's start off. What are the keywords here? Money, excellent. Okay, so say we look at money, right? What does that remind us?
Material success.
Material success, says Adeline. Yes, what else? What else?
Great money.
Sorry, teacher? Renminbi. No, that's certain countries' money, perhaps. That's not what I mean by ideas that spring forth from keywords, no. What I mean is, what are the sorts of words that will trigger all these synonyms to be employed, yeah, to great rhetorical effect throughout your essay? So, I highly doubt, teacher, you can use the term renminbi throughout, yeah? Right. What else? Material success. You see, that's a little more appropriate for it, yeah? Okay, but let's think. Lots more than people, just based on money alone. What do we think? Yeah? Huh? What else?
Money, wealth.
Sorry? Wealth, says gracious. Excellent. Yeah, so wealth and so on. So, the idea of some sort of, wealth in the financial sense is what you specifically mean, right? Any other responses? Yeah? Any other possibilities? Yeah? At the back, Michelle? And so on? Anything? We're thinking along the lines of prosperity. Yeah? Any other words that you could employ? This is the process that you're supposed to be doing as you're encountering the question. And in fact, this applies whichever question that you're tackling, not just argumentative. Because you're circling the word and thinking of all these associated words that you could be employing. So you're thinking of material success, thinking of wealth, and on and on. Yeah? What you might come up with might be something like, yes, wealth, riches, prosperity, affluence. Affluence is one of those wonderful words. It's an A1 worthy word, I would say, when used appropriately, of course. Yeah? So if you refer to affluent individuals as opposed to rich people, that tells the examiner that, I actually demonstrate a certain level of vocabulary. You see that? Yeah? So that's money. There are lots more keywords. Tell me another keyword. Root. Yeah, sounds like one of those football matches. So, root. Okay, well, what are we thinking of root then? What are we thinking? Yes? Amanda. No, not plants! No, please, no!
Nature.
No, not nature. Do you see how we've gone off track and digressed and gone... Yes, sauce. Okay, well, you see, Si Yuan saved the day. No, that's it. Well, then, okay, well, very good. So, okay, what else? Yeah, this is one word. What other words? Huh? Beginnings. The idea of, yeah, something like that, the spring or beginnings of something else. Okay, yeah? All this we should be noting down. It's not necessarily that which is contained over here, right? Anything else? I beg your pardon, would you? Basis. Well, it depends on how we use it, but that's a good word to note down first, yeah? Because, notice we can't replace root here with basis, but we could create sentences, yes, that employ that word. Yeah, or cause is another one, yeah? Although we have to be very careful of using words like cause or basis. We have to use it right, yeah? Because it doesn't literally mean root. There are nuances of meaning that separate them, right? Because cause is cause and effect, something causes the other, versus root, the idea of germination, the idea of something that springs forth, right? So, notice there's something that's different. I'm using botanical metaphors here, you see that? Yeah? Okay, so yes, indeed, source and so on, origin, spring, yeah? Foundation. So these are terms that you might just employ in future. Yeah, when, not in future, but rather as you, in the course of writing. Imagine you're writing a piece like that. Yeah? Okay, and then what are the keywords? Evil. Yes, and so on. Right? Evil. So, what about evil? What's bad? Okay, yes. But let's get beyond primary school level words of bad, good, and so on. It reminds me of those sheep and animal farms, and so on, right? Like that's bad. Right. Yes. But what about it? Yeah, evil. So tell me something that's worthy. You're A1 worthy students, right? So tell me, what words would you use in the course of an essay?
Corrupt.
What else would you use?
Corrupt.
Huh?
Corrupt.
Corrupt. Okay, Keng says corrupt. That's a useful one to think of because it's the idea of corrupt. Corrupt in what sense? Corruption of what?
The character.
Huh?
Their character.
Moral. So moral corruption. Do we see how it's very good, Gerald? Right? The idea of moral corruption, yeah, that results, for example, from being tainted by money, yeah. And of course, there are many other terms. What other terms do we employ? The more these words that spring forth naturally from you, like an untapped spring, the more likely it is that you're going to be scoring an A1 for English. Do we see that? Yeah. Okay. So, but what other words? Because there are plenty. Sorry, Baron? Yeah? Any other possibilities? This is what we should be doing. Even if we are not quite sure, we can't quite think of it or quite pinpoint it, you got to be thinking along that direction. Yeah? Huh? Sin, so, well, that takes us in a religious bent and so on. So it depends on how you argue, right? Evil, yeah? We could argue, yes, the sense of crimes, right? So it might lead people to commit crimes, right? For the sake of money. Yeah? Or moral degradation, or to use Keng Yeong's word, corruption. Yeah? The idea of corruption, yes, a sense of wickedness and so on. Yeah? Malice, that's another one. Yeah? These are terms that you can substitute the word evil. So what you don't want to be doing is just talking about evil, 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 evil. Yeah, throughout your whole essay. That, I hesitate to say, would be rather evil. No, okay, it's not evil per se. It's just you know, yeah, it's not on the level of sins, but it's less than apposite, yeah, less than appropriate. We don't want to be resorting to those words just like that. Yeah. And by the way, have you noticed a very interesting word here that might change the course of the essay? What else is the question? Oh, do you notice that? Yeah. Oh, indeed. So what's also? So notice this changes the question. It would be a very different essay between money is the root of evil, or money can cause evil, or money leads to evil, as opposed to money is the root of all evil. Do you agree? It's like, yes, as if every crime, yeah, because all suggests what? Everything without exception, right? Yes, I think you've got it faster than I did. Yeah, entirely, the sense of that which is without exception. So, the root of all evil. Sometimes, the way the question is phrased leads you to a certain stand that makes a lot more sense and would be a lot more reasonable compared to others. Even based on this, which stand is it going to be easier to argue? Is it going to be for or against?
Against.
Against or for?
Against.
Okay, who thinks here that you would agree with this? A few people. a few people, okay, for the sake of our friends at home, right? It's about 5 or 6 people around there. Now, who thinks you would disagree with this? Show of hands. Now, a lot more people. Thank you very much. I would say, beg your pardon? No, Andre, please don't say I agree to a certain extent. No, right? Again, what did we say about taking a stand? Right? No, that's not that. You need to take a stand. So here, at least those people, at least some of us, not like someone else I'm looking at, right? Is right, or some of us have realized that it's so important to take a stand. Yeah? And here, I would argue. It's easier to argue that money is not the root of all evil. Do you see? Well, that seems to make more sense. I haven't even articulated what might be our possible arguments, but that seems to make more sense. In some ways, it's easier to argue. Not saying you can't argue the opposite. It just means that it's easier in that limited space of an hour to argue that stand.
That's right.
Right? Okay, so do we see, right? There is a certain coherence of the stand that needs to take shape. Yeah, even though we could anticipate how the opposing view might be as well. Okay, now here's our time. Let's look at thesis statements. All right, so let's look at the video once again. Yeah, I'd like us to pay attention to what is it about a thesis statement that we need to pay attention to.
Your thesis statement is made up of your opinion and 3 main ideas that illustrate this. We put the thesis statement in the introduction so the reader knows straight away what the writer's opinion is and what will be explored in the essay. It's important to have a strong structure when you build a house. An essay is the same. Without a good thesis statement and topic sentences that answer the question, the argument could collapse. You need a clear thesis statement which tells the reader what the essay is about. Keep your thesis as specific as you can. It also needs to be arguable, so make sure it's not too broad or general. It should refer to the 3 points you're going to make in your body paragraphs. Let's move on to paragraphing. Why is this important? 1 idea per paragraph is a world standard. It is a method for organising your ideas and it helps your reader to follow your argument easily. Remember that you are normally awarded marks for coherence and cohesion by an examiner.
Alright, so do we see that paragraphing and expression, yeah, is so important? Meaning that you need to have 1 point per paragraph. As always, 1 point per paragraph is, as the video mentioned, that kind of gold standard, right? And all these paragraphs need to support that one clear stand, which should be clear, specific, arguable. Meaning that others could technically oppose it, but you want it to be such that yours is the standard to which others must hold in view. Yeah? And how can you introduce it? It's quite straightforward in some ways. Yeah? Just put certain discourse markers in order to signal to the reader, signposts. Right? I would certainly agree with the view, or I would agree strongly with this or that. Or I disagree that, or I argue that, I contend that, yeah? All of this. These indicate to the reader that you are making your stand. You're saying, hello, I'm making my stand now. Yeah, but you're not actually writing that down, right? That would be disastrous, yeah? So, you need to put it in terms that you don't always have to say, my stand is what, or I believe that what. There are various ways you could employ it, yeah? It all depends on how you weave it in. But the point is it should be clear, and it should be in the first paragraph. Yeah? Please don't put it in somewhere in the middle of the second paragraph just when you feel that, yeah, maybe I kind of forgot, but now I'm going to do it. No. Yeah? You got to be planning from the very beginning. This is my stand, I'm going to introduce it. I'm going to have my lead in, and then I'm going to give it my stand. Yeah? Nice and slow, nice and easy, and done properly. Yeah? Okay, so let's look at a sample. Let's look at a sample. In order to look at a sample, let's think of the ideas. What are the ideas that we come up with? Remember that same topic, money is the root of all evil. More people argued in favor of the stand that money is not the root of all evil. So what are some possible ideas that we can think of? Money is not the root of all evil because, let's see, what is money really?
Paper.
What paper? What else?
Electronic.
Coins and so on. Yeah. Well, why do we, when we use money, you can't eat it. So why would people want it?
Because people put value in it.
Because you can use it to what, Phoebe? To buy other things. It's, in other words, a kind of what?
Currency.
It's a form of currency, says Gerald. Yes. So do we see, these are terms that we want to be clarifying in our head, right? It's a form of currency, meaning it's a kind of unit of exchange, isn't it? We use it, in the past, people used to use seashells. Do you know that? Yeah? Why? Because they don't go bad. Yeah, not like rice. Yeah, not like wheat. Yeah? So seashells, that makes perfect sense. So you would exchange the seashells, right, for example, whatever you wanted. Say you wanted wheat instead, or you wanted rice. Well then, let's use some seashells, exchange it. Because it's awfully more efficient compared to barter. What would barter involve?
Rice for one chicken.
Yes, when you trade, say, for example, one bag of rice for a chicken. Well, in the first place, then that would mean that you would have to have the chicken. And the other person would have a bag of rice. And you both have to want, say, each other's item. That's awfully inefficient, now is it? Yeah? So notice, all of this is happening in your head as you're planning your points. And all you're thinking is, money in itself, what's there that's so evil in those seashells? Not really, is it? Yeah? Or what about in those forms of currency? Not exactly either. So do we see that? So is, for example, a mere medium of exchange in that way. And what about other points? Let's think of other points. Is money always bad? Does it lead to bad results? No. What else is it? To help others, say Jing Chen. Yes, so you can use it to what? To donate to others. Yeah? To help the who?
Charity.
The needy. Like along the lines of, for example, in our school we've got Project Me and so on. Right? You can help the needy. I mean, sometimes money can be used to purchase items that can go to help the underprivileged. So this is not bad, is it? Yeah? So those are arguments in favor. But then again, let's think about what are the arguments that might compromise that stand. Why might money not be all that good? It leads to corruption. In what sense? Because it breeds what? Greed, right? For example, because when you've got money, you want more money, and then I will be rich, and so on. So notice a kind of almost a desire for infinite riches, right? Like one of those Bond villains or something like that. Yeah? Yeah. Or like, yes, okay. For example, there might be, characters in films who are always blood-sucking and all those, right? You can imagine how money might lead to those results. So that's a possibility, right? That we want to be arguing, right? That, for example, money is not the root of all evil. Why? Because it's a mere medium of exchange. Yes, it can be used for beneficial purposes. Yeah? So that might be one way forward. Yeah? And then rather, what is it? It's not really money that leads to evil, is it? It's greed. There are certain primary emotions that would operate with or without money. Can people technically be greedy without money?
Yes.
Yes, right? I mean, you can be greedy for food, imagine. Yeah, I mean, well, I can think of quite a few people now. I'm not saying I exclude myself. Yeah, but notice this idea, right? You can be greedy for lots of things, isn't it? Right? It's greed or the love of money, yes, that can lead to evil. And whether one's wealth is used for good or for ill, really depends on one's motivation. That is your stand. That is something that's clear, that's specific, that's arguable. And that's what you want in order to guide the essay forward. After the reader reads this, they know, it's not going to go too badly. It's quite straightforward. We're going to see the arguments that are coming up. It's all contained inside here. This is the heart of the essay. Right? Okay, so let's look at introductions. Now, what should the introduction do? That's the question. It's got to give that sense of an overview, right? It's got to give what we call a proper contextualization for the topic at hand. Yeah? So that means contextualization, yeah, is to provide a sense of what's going on behind the scenes. So you're not just introducing your essay like how many other candidates would. They're going to begin the essay by saying, I agree that money is the root of all evil. Now, the moment the reader reads this, they're going to think, oh gosh, not yet again. You know, I mean, that is the instinctive response. Because what that indicates is a certain level of intelligence. Remember that people are going to be perceiving your sophistication or lack thereof based on your words. Right? So, that means you need to contextualize and talk about the issue. What is it that money does? Yeah? Money has for centuries been vital. For example, why? And so on. So, you might want to explain all that. And another point is that it really needs to move from the general to the specific. Which means that notice how you might lead on, right, from talking about money per se to talking about the beneficial purposes that money can offer, or rather serve. Yeah? So that's what we mean. Yeah, from a general discussion about money to go deeper into the heart of the issue. Yeah? It should be that kind of triangle. It leads to an apex and finally to a climax of your point. Right? So that is what you need to be doing. And here's a strategy. Here's a major strategy that could change your introduction. And that is the strategy, who has heard of this? Of BAM! And I just wake everyone up. BAM! Yes. Yeah? So BAM, in other words, what are you trying to make? What are you trying to make? An impact. Very nice. We see, you're trying to make an impact. So the first point of BAM, I would say, BAM, is your background. Your background needs to really engage the reader. So if you think of your opening paragraph as involving that sort of background, yeah? Yes, indeed. Yeah? That's what you want to be doing, right? Introducing a fact or a quotation. And suppose you don't know any facts or quotations? Well, that's alright, just make an observation. Yeah, talk about what you observe. We've all got observations. Yeah? So you can observe what's going on in society. Yeah? And what about rhetorical questions? Lots of people love to do this. Yeah? Question is whether it's done well. Yeah? You want to be questioning the state of society. So, what is it about money that you notice? That might be something to start off. Because then, your background is going to lead to your argument. And your argument is precisely the stand that is going to guide the entire essay and propel it forward. Because your argument itself, as that crucial stand, incorporates your main points. And so your main points are going to outline what are the ideas in your subsequent paragraphs. Which is what we've just done. Do you see how we've done all that just within the space of one paragraph? That is your introduction. Yeah? So in practice, what might that look like? Well, let's look at a possible example. Imagine, we might say, let's start with a good quote. Money is the root of all evil. The author, Louisa May Alcott, once said, and yet it is such a useful root that we cannot get on without it any more than we can without potatoes. Yes, but well, of course this might make sense in a culture that relies upon potatoes, and yes, in some varieties of potatoes are poisonous and so on and so forth. But you don't want to be confusing the reader. Please don't go off deviating from the topic, yeah, and talk about potatoes. No. Bad idea. You want to be focusing on money. And if you happen to know this quotation, you might as well use it. If you don't have this quotation, it's fine. It's fine, you don't need to. You can just talk about how the general situation about money, as you notice, that society seems to be so preoccupied with the accumulation of money. That's an observation. That's a possibility. Because then you need to move on. Beyond this, we still need another sentence before we can get to our stand, right? How do we put it? Well, let's say the quest for riches, yeah, is undoubtedly a primary motivator and driving force in many people's lives. Indeed, that's an observation. Yet is money itself to blame for all the crimes and wickedness in the world today. So here we've got our rhetorical question. Notice how we're not hard and fast about it. We don't have to avoid rhetorical questions. We can bring them in sparingly, in a fashion that will be apt for the situation at hand. Right? And then, once we've asked this question, bam! We finally bring in our stand. I argue that money is not the root of all evil, because it is a mere medium of exchange and can be used for beneficial purposes and so on and so forth. Right? So that's how we're going to do it. That's how we can bring in our stand. And notice how the stand incorporates your ideas for the subsequent paragraphs. You can anticipate what's going to follow. It's clear, it's specific, it's arguable, it goes back to those same qualities that we referred to. Okay, now, at this point, right, there be any doubts about introductions? Yes?
For the quotation, right? Must it be from a famous person, or can we like link it to what our parents said to us?
Okay, must quotations be from a famous person, or famous personality, or can we just quote, my mother said, and so on? Well, it depends on the context. Yeah, it depends on how you quote as well. Yeah? So if you know a quotation from a celebrity or a famous personality and is apt for the situation and the context, you might as well bring that in. But if you want to quote your mother, right, you've got to do it in a rather skillful fashion, right? That it is commonly the advice of most mothers to their children that money should be used in a prudent fashion.
Can you call yourself?
Right? Can you quote myself? I, Quentin, with the name alone sufficient to inspire all, have said before that money is not the root of all evil. There ends it, and the end of the essay is done because that gets full marks because my name is there. No, not quite, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Yeah? Was there a question? Huh? Donald Trump, oh please. Well, I shall not make political statements while being recorded live, of course, but one does know my personal impressions about the candidate. Yes. Okay. I would say, to answer that question directly, notice how if you can incorporate your mother's advice in a skillful fashion, in a way that doesn't sound banal, then yes. But if not, please don't make it sound like, my mother says this, therefore she's right. No, I'm sorry. Not everybody's quite convinced by your mother, to be quite honest. Yeah? So we've got to be skillful about it. So you see, that difference, is that answer it? More or less? Yeah, very nice. Okay, if you have any other questions, write it down on the post-it notes along the side. Raise your hand along the way, and then Mr. Ow will come along, right? Okay, now let's look at paragraphing and expression. Let's look at the video here, right? Let's look at the video.
Finally, we use linking devices in essay writing to connect ideas in several ways. To link clauses in sentences using words like and, so, but, and because. To link topic sentences and the thesis statement. To link the introduction to the conclusion. To link paragraphs using words such as furthermore to add information, however or nevertheless to introduce contrasting ideas, and in conclusion to summarize what you have said before. We use linkers or conjunctions to make sure that our ideas gel together to answer the essay question. Remember that words such as and, so, because tend to go in the middle of sentences, not the start.
Alright, so notice these are the linkers that you might want to incorporate in your own writing, yeah? And this is because we're talking about paragraphing and expression. Now, what does that mean? We've already said one main idea per paragraph. That's the gold standard, and we know it, yeah? But in practice, it can be a lot more difficult because when we're trying to stay on point, sometimes the contours of our argument make it difficult to really stay on focus. And yet that is precisely what we should aspire towards, right? And we need to use the peel structure, right? We always say peel structure is so important, and yet we so often neglect it, yeah? And again, what's that peel structure? Yeah? Lit students in the crowd, in particular? Yes, okay, that's your point and evidence. And evidence can be conceptualized in terms of your FEST, remember? All your teachers have mentioned this before, it's nothing new. So that's your facts, examples, statistics, and testimonies. I will focus especially on examples, right? Facts and examples. Testimonies maybe less so, unless you want to, refer to your mother. Fair enough, right? Yeah, but then we noted about linkers. Linkers and, so, but, because, and please don't begin a sentence always by referring to and. Yeah? Try to, not to say that all sentences would, necessarily must strictly adhere to some of these strict formal rules, but as a rule of thumb, we can try to use these specific linkers in the middle of sentences because it allows for greater fluency overall, yeah? With few exceptions. And also we need signposts. So signposts, for example, like this shows us that, or this indicates that, or this reveals that, or this highlights that. So all these are your possible signposts, right? These, when placed throughout the essay, allows the reader to get a much clearer sense of what your argument is. And of course, this sense of signposts, right, leads us to the idea of transitional phrases. So transitional phrases in terms of furthermore, or in addition, or moreover, or additionally, and so on. Yeah? These are terms that you can try to incorporate, not in a rather artificial or awkward fashion, but smoothly, to weave them in to the very contours of your argument. Yeah? So I've mentioned already how to structure a paragraph, right? So my classes have already seen this, yeah, in terms of how your topic sentence is like the point, right? Your evidence is substantiated, is your evidence, yeah? And the explanations will be like, you know, the vegetables and sauces to smoothen out your argument. And finally, you've got your link in the concluding sentence, yeah? Now, it comes down to this, ladies and gentlemen, which is, you will be able to score an A1 for English only if you show that you can paraphrase key terms, right, effectively, and demonstrate good vocabulary. Let's have a look to see what we mean by that in terms of paragraphs. Let's have a quick look, right? Now, your standard B grade paragraph, which you want to be avoiding, looks something like this, yeah? They're going to refer to how money, let's say, an argument. Let's say, talk about Ting Chen's point. Ting Chen argued that money can sometimes be used to do good. Yeah? So, that's quite legitimate. So let's have a topic sentence. So, also money is not the root of all evil because it is used to do good. Now, what might be wrong with this? Do good. Do good to... Yes, so do we see, some people here are noticing that this is lacking, because it's what? It's a bit vague, isn't it? Do good to whom? Right? So do good to whom? Let's do good, well yes, okay, but we'll be a bit more specific than that now, can't we? Yeah? So, huh? Oh, well then, teacher, we want to improve now, don't we? So if we say, hey, actually, I look at this B-grade paragraph, I write like that. Well, if we can diagnose ourselves, then let's try to aspire to something greater. Alright, and you're perfectly capable of it. Yeah? So if we look at it, now, this candidate continues, okay? This is what this candidate says. There are many problems like poor people. What's wrong with that?
Poor people.
Yeah, but poor people are not the problem. You're just offended, so what, half the world's population? Goodness. Right? It's not poor people, it's poverty that's the problem. Right? Being poor. Maybe that might be a bit more of an issue, being in abject poverty. But the people themselves are not to blame for it. Right? Please go. Yes. Okay, let's not bring Donald Trump in, alright? Yes. Oh goodness. Okay. So notice, this candidate continues, and disease that are very common in many parts of the world today. We need a lot of money to help people. Actually, many rich people are very kind. Now, in terms of ideas, that's not actually off. Notice, in terms of ideas, that actually makes sense. But do you think this candidate deserves an A? No, because what are the sorts of words that this candidate is using? These are, yes, elementary, right? Primary school level words, right? Yeah, it's not very robust indeed. And then look at, okay, for example, at least the candidate tries to give examples. Okay, let's give him or her credit, right? Okay, examples, right? So there is Bill Gates in America, the richest man in the world. Who is giving away all his money? Does anyone not know that Bill Gates is the richest man in the world? No, we all know this. Your reader is going to know this. Please do not repeat the obvious. Right? Oh, well then, okay, some of us are not too sure. I never heard. Who's Bill Gates, Why, I advise you to pick up the newspaper, alright? Or at least, have you come out of your cave recently? So we want to be giving details. What do we mean by that, right? And then also, okay, this candidate talks about Singaporean examples, which is not too far off, right? Also, in Singapore, there were rich and generous people like Gavin Singh and Tan Tock Seng. These were all rich people who were willing to share their money with others. Yeah, but Well, yes. Okay, at least there's some examples I mentioned, but it's not specific enough, is it? What do they do? Do we know what they did? What about, yes? What is it, Amanda? Build hospitals. Yes. Do we see how that's contextual knowledge? Do we see how that piece of evidence might change this paragraph? Right? So we want to be answering the question, what exactly did they do? All these questions, right, should be appearing very naturally in your mind, right? So, the candidate continues, not all of them are stingy, hence money is not the root of all evil. Well, problem is when you keep repeating it for the umpteenth time, that is very annoying. Right, please, right? It's just very strange. You just keep saying money is not the root of all evil, money is not... Yes, we know that, right? Can you give us any variety? Yeah. Let's look at an A grade paragraph. Furthermore, wealth can also be used for purposes which benefit society. That's quite clear, is it? It's not too bad, yeah? In terms of an example, yeah? Well, let's hear what this candidate has to say, right? Seems to make sense. Because we know who's benefited. The society, right? Society has benefited, okay. Well, problems such as poverty, disease, and the lack of education are still prevalent. Well, that's not bad, is it? A candidate knows a word other than common. Well, that's alright, yeah? Good vocabulary, yeah? Let's check spelling. How about prevalent? Spelling? Yeah, it's not bad, yeah? This is accurately spelled, right? Which is not common, because spelling errors are prevalent. Yes? So notice, and then candidate continues, in many parts of the world today, and then considerable financial resources are required to improve the condition of people around the world. That's alright. It seems to make sense, yeah? And then, candidate says, many philanthropists. Oh, philanthropists! Whoa, okay, that's good. This candidate knows how to say something other than rich people. That's something. Have not hesitated to channel their wealth. So somebody came up with the word wealth earlier. So this candidate is just like that person, right? Ability to paraphrase certain terms, like rich people, like money, and so on. Right? And then, it goes on. An example is Bill Gates, the multi-billionaire who founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which offers aid to children in developing countries worldwide. In Singapore, figures like Gan Eng Seng and Tham Sing helped to build schools and hospitals. So that's why Gan Eng Seng built school, Gan Eng Seng School, and we got Tham Sing Hospital. It's all very sensible now, isn't it? Yeah? These examples actually make sense. And they're specific. They knew, this candidate knows what Amanda knows. Which is that, for example, Tham Sing helped to build hospitals. It's specific. Yeah? And then, here's the key. It's the link. It's the link back. Such instances show that if money, if used with kindness and compassion, can generate tremendous benefits for society. So, well, actually, candidate is explaining the implications, right? So, saying, so what? Right? It's the kind of question that you can just imagine the examiner looking up in your face and saying, so what? So what? Yeah? You've got to answer that question. So what? Well, this is what I'm saying is the answer to so what. It's the implications, the significance of it. Right? And then ends off, for example, not all high net worth individuals hoard their wealth, and there are many cases of rich, charitable people who have contributed generously to society. So notice that this candidate is offering such elaboration, right? Astounding. Yeah? All that elaboration really, really fleshes out the heart of the matter. And then, we come to the end of the paragraph. Far from being the source of all ills, money can actually be an ideal force for good. Now, do we see a kind of mundane repetition of the terms of the question?
No.
No, on the contrary, what we're seeing.
It's another way of paraphrasing.
Yes, paraphrasing, another way of rephrasing it. Yeah? So we've got a link back to the stand. It's very clear. We're going back to the stand. We are telling the reader, yes, I know what I'm talking about, and this point is relevant. Implicitly, that is what you're emphasizing. Yeah? So, now what I'd like you to do, based on what we've compared, a B grade paragraph versus an A grade paragraph, can we look at this B grade paragraph, the next one, and this is what you work on. Okay, try and work on that by tomorrow. Yeah? So this is what you look through tonight and see what you can do. Work on it on foolscap paper. Yeah? And let's have a look at the paragraph. Some say that money makes us bad people because it makes us greedy. Actually, this is true to a certain extent. Some rich people want to become even richer, so they neglect their families in order to make even more money. You realize candidate is not wrong. That's actually quite true, you know? So let's not diss the point. In terms of content, the candidate is on the mark, right? But money itself cannot be blamed because it is still possible to become greedy even without money. And then comes examples. This actually makes sense, right? For example, there are Hollywood stars who have affairs because they were greedy for others' wives. So, okay. How can we rephrase that? How will we rephrase that? Think about how will we rephrase that? Practice expression. Let's try to incorporate words. This shows that whether we are good people or not is based on our choice. Even if people become rich, this does not mean that they become selfish. Well, let's try to see how we can re-express that, right? Notice the point is well taken. How do we re-express it? Hence, money is not the root of all evil. So notice this candidate, technically, do you realize is adhering to the appeal structure? So, in terms of organization, there's nothing wrong. But in terms of expression, there is something severely lacking. Can you turn this into an A-grade paragraph? Okay, let's try this, yeah? So notice what we've covered today. We've covered all these first few points about ideation and planning. We've covered the points about thesis statement and topic sentences. And introductions, as well as paragraphing and expression. And next up is going to be important, alright? We're going to be looking, for example, at expression. How do we turn that B-grade paragraph into an A-grade paragraph? And try it yourself. Here's a hint, right? Use the annex. There's annex 1. All those 100 words at the back of your handout are 100 specially selected words which have been agreed upon as being A1 level worthy. Right? So, and these are not too difficult. It's not too obscure. It's not words like Persine or Germain or something like that. You know? Yeah? So notice, these are completely usable. How would you apply them correctly? You will notice there are two columns. If you cover up the meaning, would you know it? So use a piece of paper, cover up the meaning. Can you define it? If you can, tick it in the box, the column, in the rightmost column. If you don't know it yet, please go and search how it's used and then tick it. Right? So use the annex. And then, here's the thing! Next session, which is tomorrow, we'll be looking at counter paragraphs. We'll be looking at conclusions, which is vital. And of course, editing. Alright? So, if you have any questions, please write it down on the post-its. I will incorporate it tomorrow. And with this, session 1 has concluded. Thank you very much.